In Haiti, an ordinary morning can change before noon. A road closes, a school sends children home, or a market waits for food that never arrives. Nearly 1.5 million people have been displaced, yet beyond the headlines, families still wake before sunrise. Light charcoal stoves, press school uniforms, load painted tap-taps, and carry produce into crowded streets. From Port-au-Prince to Cap Haitien, from the rice fields of Artibonite to fishing villages along the southern coast, daily life continues through constant calculation. Which route is safe? Will fuel last? This is not only a story about one of the Caribbean's most dangerous countries. It is the story of how Haiti keeps living when certainty disappears without warning. Haiti occupies the western third of Hispaniola, where the Caribbean Sea meets a landscape shaped by steep mountains, narrow plains, crowded cities, and a long, irregular coastline. From the heights of the Massif de la Selle, ridges descend toward isolated communities connected by difficult roads. Along the southern coast, fishermen push wooden boats into bright water before sunrise, while farther north, Cap Haitien wakes beneath rows of weathered, colorful buildings. In Port-au-Prince, the day begins with movement. Vendors raise metal shutters, moto drivers wait for passengers, and tap-taps pull into streets already filling with workers. At markets in Cap Haitien, women arrange plantains, peppers, rice, and household goods beneath patched tarps. School children pass in carefully pressed uniforms whenever classes are able to continue. These routines reveal a Haiti rarely captured in international headlines. Another reality remains impossible to ignore. Organized violence and political instability have disrupted roads, hospitals, schools, and the movement of food and fuel. The impact is most severe across the metropolitan area of Port-au-Prince, though insecurity reaches far beyond the capital through rising prices, interrupted transportation, and families forced to leave their homes. By May 2026, the International Organization for Migration had recorded approximately 1.47 million displaced people across Haiti. Most were not living in formal camps, but with relatives, host families, or in rented rooms already stretched beyond their intended capacity. Yet the country does not move through every day at the same pace or under the same conditions. A fishing family in the Grand Sud faces different pressures from a shopkeeper in Port-au-Prince or a farmer living beyond the mountain roads. Even within the capital, one neighborhood may open for business while another remains cut off. Behind each report of crisis, ordinary decisions continue. A mother prepares food before the charcoal runs low. A driver changes his route to avoid a blocked road. A family calls ahead before sending a child to school. Neighbors share water, meals, information, and space. Haiti holds both images at once. A Caribbean nation of mountains, markets, faith, and movement. And a country where safety can shift without warning. The question is not whether normal life disappears. It is how people keep rebuilding it, one uncertain day at a time. In the neighborhoods of Cap Haitien, family life often extends beyond a single doorway. Children move between nearby homes. Parents exchange food and errands, and grandparents remain close to the routines of the younger generation. Conversations pass easily from courtyards to sidewalks, carried in Creole Haitien, the language heard in kitchens, markets, churches, and crowded streets. Creole shapes the rhythm of everyday life. It carries humor, memory, advice, and the small instructions that hold a household together. French remains present in government, administration, and many classrooms, creating a divide between the language spoken at home and the language often required for formal advancement. For some students, education therefore involves more than learning a subject. It also means learning how to move between two linguistic worlds. Beyond the city, the road toward Milot climbs into a landscape where history remains visible in stone. The ruins of Sans Souci Palace stand below the mountains, while the Citadelle La Ferrière rises above them, its walls built after Haiti declared independence in 1804. Together with the historic site at Ramieres, these places reflect a nation created by people who had once been enslaved and who fought to determine their own future. The Haitian Revolution did more than remove colonial rule. It established the world's first independent Black republic and gave later generations a history of freedom achieved rather than granted. It appears in school lessons, public monuments, family stories, music, and the pride attached to a country that changed the political order of the Atlantic world. Yet history alone does not explain the Haitian people. Their identity is also visible in ordinary work. A mother arranges vegetables at a market stall. A driver waits beside a painted tap-tap. A student carries books through a busy street. Fishermen pull a boat toward shore, while artisans shape metal or prepare materials for another day's work. International reports often reduce Haiti to crisis, displacement, and disorder. Those conditions are real, but they do not describe an entire population. Behind them are families making decisions, neighbors exchanging help, and individuals protecting the routines that give daily life structure. The ability to act, organize, and begin again is not separate from Haitian history. It is part of the national identity that history helped create. Before sunrise, Cap Haitien begins with familiar sounds. Roosters call across adjoining yards. Brooms scrape over concrete. And metal buckets fill at public taps, wells, or household storage drums. Charcoal catches beneath blackened cooking pots as coffee warms and fresh bread is divided for the morning. Nearby, market vendors inspect plantains, peppers, rice, and other goods before carrying them toward the city center. Inside family homes, children prepare for school with careful attention. Uniforms are pressed. Shoes are wiped clean, and books are arranged inside worn backpacks. Yet the morning decision involves more than punctuality. Parents listen for news, call relatives, and ask neighbors which roads are open before deciding whether a child can leave safely or must remain at home. As daylight spreads, Cap Haitien gathers speed. Painted tap-taps stop for passengers. Moto drivers weave through growing traffic. And shopkeepers lift corrugated metal shutters. At the central market, women unfold tarps, stack produce, and measure dry goods into small portions. Farmers and traders unload vegetables, charcoal, and sacks of grain from vehicles that have traveled in from surrounding communities. The streets appear ordinary, but small changes reveal the pressure beneath the routine. Passengers ask drivers about conditions ahead. A tap-tap turns away from its usual route. One store opens later than expected, while another prepares to close before sunset. Vendors bring only what they believe can be sold that day, limiting the loss if transportation is interrupted. In Port-au-Prince, the same calculations carry greater weight. A parent calls again after a child reaches school. Workers wait for confirmation before crossing certain parts of the city. Drivers compare information at intersections, then choose roads that may add time but reduce risk. Daily movement depends on judgment, timing, and trust. By late afternoon, market stalls begin to empty. Children return home when classes have been possible, and families prepare rice, beans, plantains, or whatever the day's earnings can provide. Neighbors settle onto front steps. Dominoes strike wooden tables, and compa drifts from homes and small bars. A normal day in Haiti is not defined by the absence of uncertainty. It is built from dozens of quiet decisions that allow work, school, meals, and family life to continue despite it. At Lac de Riel in Bizoton, home extends beyond the walls of a single house. Several generations gather around a shared space, where children move between relatives. Meals are prepared in large pots, and daily tasks pass from one pair of hands to another. Elders remain close to family decisions, while songs and stories keep the presence of ancestors within ordinary life. UNESCO once supported the preservation of sacred Vodou songs connected to this laku, recognizing a tradition carried through memory, voice, and repeated practice. In rural communities around Dondon and Artibonite, cooperation often becomes visible through the konbit. Neighbors gather to harvest crops, repair a damaged home, or clear a canal that no household could manage alone. Work moves to the rhythm of conversation, tools, and shared effort. When the task is finished, food is placed before the group, turning labor into an exchange of responsibility that continues from one family to the next. Faith also occupies more than one space. Church bells call Catholic families to worship. while Vodou ceremonies connect participants to ancestors, healing, and collective memory. These traditions do not always stand apart. Within the same household, prayer, church attendance, family stories, and Vodou practices may all contribute to a sense of order and belonging. Farther south, Jacmel carries culture into its streets. Artisans shape papier-mâché into carnival masks. Painters cover walls and canvases with scenes of daily life. And musicians rehearse rhythms that return during public celebrations. Younger artists watch, assist, and gradually take on the skills of older generations. UNESCO recognizes Jacmel for its crafts and folk art, but the work remains rooted in workshops, family knowledge, and the need to earn a living. At Noailles, in Croix des Bouquets, discarded metal drums are cut open and hammered flat. Artisans guide chisels across the surface, forming market scenes, plants, animals, and Vodou symbols from sheets of reused steel. The craft passes through families and apprenticeships, linking cultural memory to income. Insecurity has interrupted workshops and forced some artists to relocate. UNESCO now supports displaced metalworkers as they rebuild production and find new ways to sell their work. Under pressure, culture becomes more than inheritance. It provides work, comfort, social structure, and a way for communities to recognize themselves when so much around them is uncertain. Before sunrise, a macan in Port-au-Prince, or Cap Haitien, begins work long before her stall opens. She checks baskets, counts small bills, and arranges produce bought from farmers or middlemen. By the time the streets fill, plantains, rice, peppers, soap, and cooking oil are already moving through a chain of hands. A modest table beneath a tarp may support an entire household. Much of that food begins far from the city. In the Artibonite Valley, farmers plant and harvest rice across one of Haiti's most important agricultural regions. Sacks leave the fields by truck or smaller vehicles, pass through wholesale markets, and finally reach neighborhood vendors who divide them into portions families can afford. Mangoes and other crops follow similar routes. Every stage depends on roads remaining open. Tap-tap and moto drivers pay for fuel, wait for passengers, and adjust their earnings to the number of trips they can complete. Inside crowded vehicles, riders exchange news about traffic, prices, and conditions ahead. When one road becomes inaccessible, the effects spread quickly. Drivers lose fares, workers arrive late, and vendors wait for goods that may not come. Along the coast, fishermen return with catches shaped by weather, fuel costs, and the ability to reach a market before the fish spoils. At Noailles, artisans hammer flattened metal into scenes of markets, plants, animals, and spiritual symbols. Their income depends on materials arriving and finished pieces reaching buyers. A broken route can separate skilled work from the people willing to pay for it. Phones help hold this scattered economy together. Vendors call customers, drivers compare routes, and families receive money sent by relatives abroad. Remittances often cover school fees, food, medicine, or repairs, then stretch across several members of the same household. Instability changes the scale of every decision. Sellers carry less stock. Customers buy rice, oil, or charcoal in smaller amounts. Drivers alter prices as fuel and travel time rise. In 2026, violence and displacement in parts of Artibonite disrupted access to farms, roads, and markets beyond the capital. Haiti's economy does not rest only in offices or formal institutions. It moves through fields, boats, market stalls, workshops, phones, and painted vehicles. Its strength lies in constant activity. Its weakness is that one closed road can interrupt the work of hundreds of people. A Haitian meal begins long before a pot reaches the fire. In the Artibonite Valley, farmers harvest rice that will travel through trucks, markets, and neighborhood stalls before reaching family kitchens. In the hills around Dondon, coffee is grown as a regional product tied to the land and the work of rural communities. Plantains, vegetables, peppers, herbs, and fish arrive from farms, gardens, and coastal villages, each carrying the labor of people far beyond the table. At the markets of Cap Haitien, women sort produce, measure rice, and sell ingredients in quantities families can afford that day. Prices shape every choice. A shopper may leave with fewer vegetables, a smaller measure of oil, or a different ingredient than planned. Back at home, charcoal is lit beneath a cooking pot, and several family members gather around a meal built from what the market has made possible. Diri ak pois remains a foundation of everyday cooking, served with vegetables or whatever else the household can add. Portions stretch across children, parents, grandparents, and sometimes relatives who have recently arrived. Food is not always abundant, but the act of eating together gives the day a familiar structure. At Frite stands in Port-au-Prince and Jacmel. Oil crackles around pieces of marinated pork and pressed plantains. Griot is served with banane peze and sharp, spicy picklets, creating both a family meal and a source of income for street vendors. The food moves quickly from pan to plate, feeding workers, drivers, and shoppers passing through the neighborhood. On January 1st, soup jumu carries a different weight. Several generations prepare it together, cleaning, cutting, stirring, and tasting as children watch the process. After Haiti gained independence, the soup became a symbol of freedom, linking the family kitchen to national history. UNESCO later recognized the tradition as part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. In periods of instability, the pressure reaches the table. Rice may cost more. Oil may be harder to find. Produce may arrive late when roads are disrupted. Families adjust recipes, reduce portions, and share with relatives who now live under the same roof. A hot meal cannot solve the uncertainty outside, but around a Haitian table, it can restore order for an evening, preserve memory, and remind a family that whatever has changed, they still belong to one another. Before dawn on Île Vache, fishermen push narrow wooden boats into dark water and set out before the heat rises. Their work depends on weather, fuel, and the condition of the sea. When they return, the catch is sorted on shore, packed for local sale, or sent toward markets on the mainland. By afternoon, nets are spread for repair, hulls are patched, and news passes between men working beside the boats. Distance shapes every part of island life. Fuel, medicine, building materials, and food that cannot be produced locally must cross the water. A delayed boat can affect a household, a shop, or an entire fishing crew. The sea provides income, but it also determines how quickly help can arrive. Across the Grand Sud, coastal communities depend on mangroves, small farms, fishing grounds, and other natural resources. Mangrove roots shelter young fish and help hold the shoreline in place. Families gather wood, cultivate small plots, and sell what the land and sea provide. Restoring these coastal forests supports both fishing and protection from storms, linking environmental care directly to household survival. Far inland, the Massif de la Selle rises sharply above the lowlands. Communities near Parc National La Visite live above 1,800 meters, where steep roads make travel slow and difficult. Farmers work sloping fields, carry goods along mountain paths, and rely heavily on rain, soil, and limited access routes. Reaching a clinic, market, or school may require a journey that would be simple in a city but demanding in the highlands. The Artibonite Valley offers a different landscape. Irrigated fields spread across the plain as farmers tend rice on small plots. Harvested grain moves toward towns and cities, helping feed families far beyond the valley. Yet canals can fill with sediment, roads can fail, and erosion can reduce the productivity of the land. Deforestation and extreme weather deepen these pressures. Soil washes from hillsides, homes face landslides, and storms can destroy roofs, boats, crops, and tools in a single day. Near Jacmel, the blue pools of Bassin Bleu reveal the movement of water through this rugged terrain. But water in Haiti is never only scenery. It supports fields, homes, transport, and survival. Danger in Haiti does not come from one source. Mountains, distance, erosion, storms, and limited infrastructure all shape how securely a family can live from one season to the next. Across metropolitan Port-au-Prince, danger does not shape every street in the same way. One neighborhood may remain active while another becomes difficult to enter. Farther north and south, daily routines often follow a different rhythm. Yet the effects of the crisis still travel through blocked roads, higher prices, displaced families, and public services stretched beyond their limits. IOM reports that displacement remains concentrated around the capital, but is increasing in Artibonite and other areas beyond it. The consequences appear in ordinary places. A bus turns back before reaching its destination. Market stalls wait for deliveries that do not arrive. Schools close without warning or reopen with irregular schedules. Patients struggle to reach clinics, while shops ration fuel and households manage with unreliable electricity and water. A missed workday can mean a family has less food that evening. When people leave their homes, they often carry only what can be moved quickly. Clothes are folded into bags, documents are gathered, and children follow adults toward the home of a relative or friend. School routines disappear first. Parents must search for new work, while several families share bedrooms, cooking space, water, and whatever income remains. In Artibonite, attacks around Petite Rivière, Pont-Saint-Day, and Dessalines show how the crisis has moved beyond the capital. Families have been displaced from farming communities and transport corridors that help move food toward urban markets. When those routes are interrupted, the effects reach both the countryside and the city. Gonaives has become one place where displaced people turn to relatives and acquaintances. Following attacks there in 2026, IOM found that those displaced in the surveyed movement were staying with host families within the same area. A household that once supported 5 people may suddenly support 8 or 10. Meals become smaller. Sleeping arrangements shift, and every expense is reconsidered. The pressure is not only physical. Parents call repeatedly when children leave home. Workers check their phones before crossing town. Plans change within minutes, and families remain unsure whether another move may be necessary. Young people weigh attachment to Haiti against the possibility of seeking safety or opportunity abroad. The crisis is severe, but Haiti is not one continuous battlefield. It is a country where uncertainty settles into daily decisions, altering how people travel, study, work, and care for one another. In Gonaives, a family home can change shape within a few hours. Mattresses are moved, cooking pots grow larger, and children make space for cousins who have arrived with only a few bags. Meals are divided more carefully, and everyone takes on a task. One household becomes a small network of shelter, food, childcare, and information. In Cap Haitien and parts of Port-au-Prince, vendors adjust their work to the conditions of the day. Some open only after checking which roads remain passable. Others carry less produce, sell closer to home, or contact regular customers by phone before setting up a stall. Rice, oil, charcoal, and vegetables are measured into smaller portions so families with limited cash can still buy what they need. Movement requires the same flexibility. Tap-tap drivers avoid certain streets, while moto drivers take longer routes through side roads. Passengers trade updates before climbing aboard, and workers leave earlier to allow for delays. Many try to return before dark, even when that means shortening the workday. Parents also rebuild routines around education. A child may transfer to another school, study with relatives, or join a small group in a neighborhood home. Phones provide lessons and messages when electricity and data allow. Even under pressure, families continue setting aside money for uniforms, books, and school fees. Relatives abroad remain part of these daily decisions. Money sent home helps purchase food, medicine, pay tuition, or repair a roof. A single transfer may support several people, linking those who left Haiti to the household still managing each day inside it. At Noailles, displaced metalworkers search for tools, clear new workspaces, and begin hammering sheets of metal again. Older artisans continue teaching younger hands how to cut patterns and shape familiar scenes. Finished pieces reach buyers through new contacts and improvised channels. Across neighborhoods, residents clear blocked drains, patch roofs, share water, cook together, and watch one another's children. They pass warnings by phone and check on elderly neighbors before leaving home. Daily life continues not because uncertainty disappears, but because people keep reorganizing around it. Family, information, shared labor, and small resources allow the day to regain its rhythm. In Cap Haitien, home often means more than one household. Grandparents live close to grandchildren. Siblings remain within walking distance. And daily responsibilities move between generations. One person prepares food. Another watches the children. And someone else checks on an older relative before leaving for work. The network is practical, familiar, and difficult to replace. Across Artibonite, a field or small garden carries more than economic value. It may hold the memory of parents and grandparents who worked the same soil, built a house nearby, or planted trees that still provide shade. Some families remain to protect that land. Others stay because an aging parent, a young child, or a relative with nowhere else to go depends on them. Creole Haitien holds another kind of belonging. It is heard in market calls, family jokes, prayers, songs, and instructions passed across a kitchen. A familiar dish needs little explanation. Neither does the rhythm of compa drifting from a radio, or the way neighbors recognize when a household needs help before anyone asks. Faith and community reinforce those connections. Church congregations gather in prayer, while lakay traditions preserve ties among family, place, and ancestors. In difficult moments, neighbors bring water, watch children, repair a roof, or make room at a table. Belonging is expressed through action. Still, remaining in Haiti is not always a simple choice. Many young people hope to study or work abroad. Some imagine returning with skills, money, or experience. Others plan to build permanent lives elsewhere. Some families stay because they want to. Others stay because leaving is beyond their means, or because responsibility holds them in place. Across Jacmel, Noailles, Vache, Port-au-Prince, and Gonaïves, the meaning of home takes different forms. An artisan returns to a workbench. A fisherman pulls a boat onto shore. A host family rearranges a room for relatives who have arrived. In Creole, the word is lakay. It means home, but it carries more than an address. Lakay is where food tastes familiar, where language carries memory, and where a family understands who someone is without explanation. Haiti is not only a place where people struggle to remain. It is also the place where personal history, national memory, and everyday belonging meet. In Haiti, an ordinary morning can change before noon. A road closes, a school sends children home, or a market waits for food that never arrives. Nearly 1.5 million people have been displaced, yet beyond the headlines, families still wake before sunrise. Light charcoal stoves, press school uniforms, load painted tap-taps, and carry produce into crowded streets. From Port-au-Prince to Cap Haitien, from the rice fields of Artibonite to fishing villages along the southern coast, daily life continues through constant calculation. Which route is safe? Will fuel last? This is not only a story about one of the Caribbean's most dangerous countries. It is the story of how Haiti keeps living when certainty disappears without warning.